Welcome to Wife Cheating Story. I hope you have an enjoyable and relaxing time listening. Let's get started.
We're incredibly grateful for your support. Before we begin today's tale, tell us, which city or country are you joining us from? We love connecting with our global audience. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. Foundations of Sand. The day August Brennan proposed to Melody Laurent, he believed he'd found someone who understood the weight of promises. They'd met 3 years prior at a charity function where August, fresh from selling his home security startup to a major corporation, was the reluctant guest of honor. Melody, with her cascading auburn hair and his sharp intellect, had approached him not with the usual fawning interest in his newfound wealth, but with pointed questions about his secure communications patents. Most people don't realize how vulnerable their lives are, she'd said, sipping champagne. You've built walls around that vulnerability. August had been instantly captivated. At 34, he'd spent his life building systems to protect people from external threats. What he hadn't developed was protection against threats that smiled at you across the breakfast table. Their courtship had been swift but deliberate. Melody's background in corporate law complemented his technical expertise, and they moved in together after just 9 months. The wedding followed 6 months later, intimate but elegant, just like their relationship seemed to be. August used the considerable nest egg from his company sale to purchase a modernist home in Ravenswood Hills, an exclusive development where the houses were spaced generously apart. He'd immediately upgraded the security system, installing his own proprietary technology throughout the property. It was both passion project and profession. August now consulted privately for high-value clients who needed custom security solutions. "You're turning our home into Fort Knox," Melody had teased, watching him install sensors along the window frames. "Just keeping what's precious safe," he'd replied, kissing her forehead. What August didn't mention was his customary thoroughness. Every security expert knew that external threats were only half the equation. The other half came from inside. So along with the visible security measures, August installed a parallel system, one that Melody knew nothing about. Invisible cameras in common areas, activity loggers on their network, and backup power systems that would engage silently if the main grid was compromised. Trust but verify, the mantra of his military father who'd raised August alone after his mother abandoned them both when he was 7. The lesson had been seared into August through years of waking up to an empty house his father deployed overseas, neighbors checking in periodically, while August learned self-reliance before most kids learned long division. The first sign that something was amiss came 14 months into their marriage. August noticed subtle changes in Melody, new clothes appearing in her closet, longer hours at the law firm, and a password change on her personal phone. Individually, each meant nothing. Collectively, they triggered the same warning system in August's mind that had made him successful in security architecture. "Phoenix Securities, this is Preston," came the voice over August's earpiece as he drove home one Tuesday evening. "Preston, it's August. I need surveillance on the Ravenswood property. System showing green across all zones, sir. Not our system. I need eyes on the exterior. Vehicle monitoring, specifically." There was a pause. Preston Wilcott had worked with August long enough to understand the implications. Time frame: yesterday and today between 2 and 4 p.m. Any vehicles we don't recognize. I'll pull the street cam footage. Give me an hour. August disconnected, hands tight on the steering wheel. 3 hours later, Preston's report arrived via encrypted message. A silver Maserati had parked 2 blocks away on both days. The driver, male, approximately 6 feet 2 inches, athletic build, had walked to the Brennan residence and entered using a key. August didn't confront Melody. Instead, he accessed the hidden house system from his secure laptop and reviewed footage from the past week. The master bedroom camera showed Melody and a tall, sandy-haired man in what was unquestionably an intimate embrace. The timestamp matched Preston's report. That night, Melody talked about her challenging case, describing complex legal maneuvers while August silently counted the lies stacking up between them. She smelled of unfamiliar cologne poorly masked by her evening shower. "How's Bryce doing?" August asked casually over dinner. Melody's fork paused midway to her mouth. Bryce, your new paralegal. The one helping with the Westmoreland case. Oh, she recovered quickly. He's fine, eager, but inexperienced. Another lie. There was no paralegal named Bryce. August had invented him to see if Melody would create a fictional work relationship rather than question why August would ask about someone who didn't exist. As August cleared the dishes, he decided to wait, to observe, to plan. Because August Brennan didn't just react, he calculated. And someone had just made the gravest miscalculation of their life. Chapter 2, Family Ties. The Lawrence weren't just Melody's parents. They were an institution unto themselves. Clayton Laurent had built Laurent Development from a small residential construction company into a regional powerhouse, while his wife Veronica managed their considerable social capital with the precision of a military campaign. August had known marrying Melody meant contending with her parents' outsized influence, but he'd underestimated just how deeply the Laurent family dynamics would infiltrate their marriage. Mother thinks we should join the Sterling Club, Melody announced over breakfast 3 days after August discovered her affair. Dad can sponsor us. August looked up from his coffee. We discussed this. I'm not interested in spending weekends with her country club friends. Melody's face tightened. It's important for your consulting business. Connections matter. My work speaks for itself, August replied. And my clients value discretion, not cocktail parties. The argument was familiar territory, but today it carried new weight. August understood now that Melody's insistence on integrating into her parents' world wasn't just about social climbing. It was about maintaining the appearance of the perfect daughter with a successful husband, even while she betrayed their marriage. Through careful investigation, August had identified Melody's lover as Weston Crawford, son of Clayton Lawrence's oldest friend and business partner. The Crawfords and Lawrence had expected Melody and Weston to marry since childhood. August had been the unwelcome variable in their dynastic planning. That afternoon, August's phone buzzed with a call from Clayton Laurent. August, I hope we're not catching you at a bad time. Clayton's voice carried the practiced warmth of a man accustomed to getting his way. Veronica and I are in the neighborhood and thought we might stop by to see that new security system you've been talking about. The spontaneous visit was clearly manufactured. The Lawrence lived 40 minutes away and never did anything without meticulous planning. Of course, August replied smoothly. Melody's working late, but I'd be happy to show you around. 90 minutes later, Clayton and Veronica Laurent were seated in August's living room, declining his offer of refreshments. Impressive setup you have, Clayton commented, glancing around at the visible security features. Though it seems excessive for a residential property. Safety is never excessive, August replied. Veronica straightened an already perfect sleeve. We were hoping to discuss something important with you, August. It concerns Melody's future. Isn't her future our future? August asked mildly. Clayton cleared his throat. We've set up a family trust. Significant assets. But there are conditions. Clayton believes in proper estate planning. Veronica interjected. With clear lines of control. And you're telling me this because... August let the question hang. We'd like a key to your home, Clayton stated bluntly. As Melody's parents, we need to be able to check on her well-being. August raised an eyebrow. She's 31 years old. Nevertheless, Veronica said firmly, family needs access to family. It's how we've always done things. And what does Melody think about this request? Clayton smiled thinly. She agrees completely. In fact, she suggested it. August doubted that very much, but he simply nodded. I'll have a copy made tomorrow. As he showed them out, August noticed Veronica studying the security panel by the door with unusual interest. Later that night, when Melody returned home, again, later than her claimed work schedule would justify, August mentioned her parents' visit. They want a key to our house, he said, watching her reaction carefully. Melody didn't seem surprised. Did you give them one? I said I'd have one made. Any reason why they suddenly need access to our home? She shrugged, avoiding his eyes. Mother worries. You know how she is. And you're okay with your parents having unrestricted access to our home? To just drop in whenever they want. They won't abuse it. Melody insisted. It's just important to them. For emergencies. August nodded slowly. If it's important to you, then it's fine with me. That night, as Melody slept beside him, August laid awake wondering what emergencies the Lawrence were anticipating. And why, for the first time since their wedding, Melody had left her phone face down on her nightstand. Chapter 3. The Keys to Deception. The key handover occurred on a Sunday afternoon when the Lawrence invited August and Melody for their monthly family dinner. August presented the house key to Clayton with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. I've added you to the security system as well, August explained. The alarm will recognize your entry code, 5829. Clayton pocketed the key with a satisfied nod. Excellent, though I'm sure we'll rarely need to use it. I certainly hope not, August replied. What August didn't mention was that the key was cut to a slightly different specification than the original. It would work, but it would also trigger a silent notification to his phone. Similarly, the entry code would disarm the visible security system while activating enhanced monitoring on his private network. Later that evening, as they drove home, Melody reached over and squeezed his hand. Thank you for doing that. I know you value your privacy. Family is important, August said simply. I understand that better than most. The words held a double meaning that Melody missed entirely. August's own family history, his mother's abandonment, his father's emotional distance, had left him with a profound understanding of betrayal. He'd spent his childhood developing systems to detect threats before they could hurt him. His father, Colonel Richard Brennan, had drilled into him that survival depended on preparation. The world doesn't telegraph its punches, son, his father would say. You either see them coming or you get knocked down. Over the next week, August methodically gathered evidence of Melody's affair. The hidden cameras captured her and Weston together twice more when August was supposedly out of town on business. Phone records showed hundreds of text messages between them. But most damning was what August discovered when he accessed Melody's cloud storage after noticing her syncing files late at night. Property listings, rental agreements, school information for neighborhoods nowhere near their current home. Melody and Weston were planning an exit strategy, one that included liquidating assets that rightfully belonged to both August and Melody. Most telling was an email exchange between Melody and her parents. We need to move carefully. August's security background complicates things. Weston thinks we should retrieve important documents first, then handle the financial transfers. Dad, can you use the key to access his home office when he's at the Chicago conference next week? The prenup addendum should be in his safe. We need to know what we're dealing with. The response from Clayton had been brief. We'll handle it. Your mother has concerns about the security system. Can you disable it? August closed his laptop, a cold clarity washing over him. He wasn't just dealing with an unfaithful wife. He was facing a coordinated effort by the Loron family to protect their dynastic plans by removing him from the equation. That night, August made a phone call to someone he hadn't spoken to in years. Mason, it's August Brennan. I need your particular expertise. August paused, listening to the response. Yes, it's about that specialized security scenario we discussed in Kandahar. How soon can you be in Chicago? August hung up and began drafting detailed plans on his secure tablet. The Loron family thought they were dealing with a successful but naive businessman who could be outmaneuvered. They were about to discover they were actually facing a man who had spent his life preparing for exactly this type of betrayal. As Melody slept beside him, August made a solemn vow to himself. By the time this was over, the people who had conspired against him would understand the true meaning of being trapped. Chapter 4. The Architect of Vengeance. Mason Calloway arrived in a nondescript hotel 3 miles from August's home 2 days later. At 6'3" with cropped silver hair and the lean build of a man who never stopped training, Mason didn't look like someone who had spent 15 years in military intelligence before founding one of the most discreet private security firms in the country. You look like hell, were his first words to August as they met in a secure conference room Mason had swept for surveillance devices. Appreciate the honesty, August replied, setting down a thick folder on the table. How's retirement? Mason snorted. Boring as watching paint dry. Your call was the most interesting thing to happen since I put the firm in Lydia's hands. He opened the folder, scanning the documents inside. So, the wife, the in-laws, and the childhood sweetheart. Classic and potentially criminal, August added. They're planning to access my home office safe during the Chicago Security Conference next week, which contains nothing they want to find, August said with a grim smile. But everything I want them to find. Mason leaned back. Walk me through your plan. For the next 2 hours, August detailed his strategy. It wasn't just about catching Melody and Weston in their affair. That was merely the opening move. The true plan was far more comprehensive, designed to dismantle the Loron family's control over Melody and expose the rot at the foundation of their carefully constructed public image. You're sure about the background on Weston Crawford? Mason asked, reviewing a particular document. August nodded. His gambling debts are real. So this is embezzlement from the Loron Foundation. Clayton has been covering for him for years, grooming him as the son he never had while hiding his crimes. And your wife knows about this? She's helping him hide the evidence. That's what some of those meetings have been about, transferring funds to offshore accounts that can't be traced back to the foundation. Mason whistled low. No wonder they want you gone. You're the security expert who might actually notice. I'm also the husband who signed a prenup with a fidelity clause that Melody's father insisted on, August added. If she divorces me for another man, she gets nothing from my company's sale. If I divorce her for infidelity, same outcome. So they need you to file for divorce without evidence of the affair, Mason concluded. Or they need me to disappear more permanently. August's voice was flat. Clayton Loron doesn't leave loose ends. Mason's expression hardened. That's serious? I've uncovered communications suggesting contingency plans if I become difficult. August tapped a particular document in the folder. Clayton has connections to people who solve problems discreetly. Then we move fast, Mason said. What resources do you need? I've already prepared most of it, but I need your team for surveillance and the technical aspects of the trap. And I need someone Clayton and Veronica have never met. Mason pulled out his phone. I'll call Lydia. She could be your unknown variable. As Mason made arrangements, August opened his laptop and activated a specialized program. On the screen, a 3D rendering of his house appeared, with red dots indicating the locations of his hidden security devices. We have 6 days until they make their move, August said as Mason rejoined him. In that time, we need to make significant modifications to the house. What kind of modifications? August's smile was cold and precise. The kind that turn a home into a judgment chamber. Chapter 5, Webs of Deceit. The Chicago Security Conference provided the perfect cover. As one of the keynote speakers, August's absence from home was not only expected, but publicly documented. What wasn't documented was that August had no intention of staying at the conference beyond his opening day presentation. You look stunning, August told Melody on the morning of his departure, watching her reaction carefully. She smiled, adjusting his tie with practiced affection. Just hurry back. 5 days is a long time. I'll try to wrap up early if possible, he replied, noting how her eyes flickered briefly with what might have been concern. August left for the conference with his usual luggage, gave his scheduled presentation on emerging threats in quantum encryption, attended the evening reception, and then disappeared, not to his hotel room, but to an unmarked van where Mason and his team had established a mobile command center. Right on schedule, Mason said as August climbed into the van. Your wife made a call 3 minutes after your conference speech ended. Her father called Weston Crawford immediately after. August nodded grimly, accepting the headset Mason handed him. Audio's online from a house. Every room. And Lydia has eyes on Crawford. He's at the Loron house now, apparently discussing something urgent with your father-in-law. For the next 48 hours, August maintained his conference presence virtually while monitoring the activities around his home. Melody made multiple calls to both her parents and Weston, the content carefully coded, but the intent clear. They were finalizing their plan. On the third day, Clayton Loron used the key August had provided to enter the Brennan residence, while Melody was supposedly at work. August watched through the hidden cameras as his father-in-law methodically searched the home office. eventually using a device to crack the safe, exactly as August had anticipated. Inside, Clayton found exactly what August wanted him to find: falsified documents suggesting August was investigating the Loron Foundation for financial irregularities, along with notes about Weston's gambling debts. He took the bait, August said, watching Clayton photograph the documents with his phone. And now we have him on camera, breaking into my safe. Your wife just left her office, Mason's surveillance specialist reported. She's not heading home. Crawford's condo, August guessed, and received confirmation moments later. That evening, August watched through the surveillance system as Melody returned home and retrieved items from their bedroom, including jewelry August had given her and documents from her personal lockbox. She was clearly gathering essentials for an escape. They're accelerating their timeline, Mason observed. Your planted evidence spooked them. Good, August replied. That means they'll make mistakes. The following morning brought confirmation of just how significant those mistakes would be. August intercepted an email from Clayton to a known fixer in Clayton's network, a man named Victor Russo, who specialized in making problems disappear. Need full sanitization of the Ravenswood property on Saturday. Standard package plus digital. Subject has compromising information that cannot surface. They're planning to stage a break-in. August translated for the team. Possibly make it look like I interrupted it and was killed by the intruder. Mason's expression darkened. This crosses into criminal conspiracy, which is exactly what we need, August replied. Now we implement the final modifications to the house. Over the next 24 hours, August's team transformed the Brennan residence. While maintaining the appearance of the original security system, they installed a secondary framework controlled entirely from August's secure server. Door locks were modified, surveillance cameras enhanced, and a sophisticated lockdown protocol implemented. The moment they enter on Saturday, the system goes active, August explained to Mason and Lydia as they reviewed the final preparations. Every entrance seals, communication jammers activate, and they'll find themselves in a house very different from the one they think they know. This is elaborate, even for you, Mason commented. August's eyes were cold with purpose. They conspire to take everything from me, my home, my reputation, possibly my life. They're about to learn that some traps can't be escaped. As Saturday approached, August received confirmation that all the players were moving into position. Melody had secretly packed a suitcase and made arrangements to meet Weston at his condo after what was supposed to be the break-in. Clayton and Veronica Loron had booked flights to their villa in the Cayman Islands departing Sunday morning. And Victor Russo had assembled a team for the sanitization. What none of them knew was that August had already contacted federal authorities with evidence of the Loron Foundation's financial irregularities. The only missing piece was catching the conspirators in an act that would remove any doubt about their intentions. Are you sure about this? Mason asked on Friday night as they finalized the trap. Once it's sprung, there's no going back. August looked at the wedding photo still displayed in his living room. A smiling couple that had never really existed. They destroyed any chance of going back, he said quietly. Now they face the consequences. Chapter 6. The trap is set. Saturday arrived with an unseasonable thunderstorm that seemed fitting for what was about to unfold. From a surveillance van parked 2 blocks from his house, August watched as the day's events began to unfold with precise, terrible synchronicity. At 10:17 a.m., Melody left the house with her overnight bag, telling their neighbor she was visiting a friend for the weekend while August was at his conference. At 11:42 a.m., Victor Russo arrived in an unmarked utility van, accompanied by 2 men carrying equipment cases. They surveilled the property for 20 minutes before departing, clearly planning their entry for later. Your wife just arrived at Crawford's condo, Lydia reported, monitoring the secondary surveillance. They appear to be celebrating. Champagne. August merely nodded, his attention focused on the encrypted message that had just arrived from his contact at the Financial Crimes Division of the FBI. Evidence sufficient for warrants. Moving Monday morning. Maintain current position. Monday will be too late, August said to Mason. They'll be out of the country by then. So we proceed as planned, Mason confirmed. We proceed. The key moment came at 3:28 p.m. when August's phone buzzed with a notification he'd been waiting for. Clayton Laurent had used his key to enter the Brennan residence. 2 minutes later, Veronica Laurent followed. August activated the house's modified security system from his laptop. System armed, he confirmed. All protocols active. Through the hidden cameras, August watched as Clayton and Veronica moved through the house with purpose. They weren't there to check on their daughter's well-being. They were there to prepare the scene for Victor Russo's team. The safe first, Clayton directed his wife. August's files need to disappear completely. As they entered the home office, August pressed a key on his laptop. Throughout the house, an almost imperceptible sound signaled the activation of electromagnetic locks on every door and window. The Lawrence were now sealed inside. What was that? Veronica asked, looking up from a safe she was attempting to open. Clayton frowned, moving to the office door. When he tried to open it, it didn't budge. It's locked. That's impossible, Veronica said. These doors don't lock automatically. Clayton moved to the windows next, discovering they too wouldn't open. His face flushed with growing alarm as he pulled out his cell phone, only to find no signal. Something's wrong, he said, voice tight with tension. Call Melody. Veronica's phone showed the same lack of service. I can't get through. August allowed himself a small, cold smile as he activated the house intercom system, another modification his in-laws knew nothing about. Hello, Clayton. Veronica. His voice echoed through the house, causing both Lawrence to freeze in shock. I believe we need to have a conversation about privacy, respect, and consequences. August. Clayton recovered quickly, masking his surprise with indignation. What is the meaning of this? Release us immediately. I'm afraid I can't do that, August replied calmly. Not until our guests arrive. What guests? Veronica demanded, her perfectly maintained composure beginning to crack. What are you doing? Instead of answering, August switched the feed to the hidden camera in the living room as the front door's electronic lock disengaged briefly. Victor Russo and his two associates entered cautiously, carrying tools that left little doubt about their intentions. Mr. Laurent? Russo called out, unaware of the surveillance. We're here for the job. As soon as they were inside, August re-engaged the front door lock. Now all 5 conspirators were sealed inside the house, separated by locked interior doors, but able to hear each other. Victor, Clayton called through the office door. There's a problem. We're locked in. The confusion that followed was exactly what August had planned for. Russo and his men attempted to force the front door, discovering that their tools made no impact on the reinforced frame. Clayton and Veronica tried to break the office windows, only to find the seemingly normal glass was actually impact-resistant security material. Let me assure you, August announced through the intercom, that this house was designed to withstand much more significant forces than you can apply. You might as well make yourselves comfortable. What do you want? Clayton demanded, the first hints of fear creeping into his voice. Justice, August replied simply. And for that, we need one more guest. At that moment, August sent a text message to Melody from Clayton's cloned phone number. Emergency at your house. Need you here now. Come alone. Now we wait. August told Mason and Lydia, and watch as they turn on each other. It took only 20 minutes for the tensions inside the house to boil over. Victor Russo, realizing he'd been trapped in what was potentially an elaborate sting operation, began threatening Clayton. You set me up, Russo shouted, audible throughout the house through the intercom system August had activated. If I'm going down for this, you're coming with me. No one is going down, Clayton insisted, though his voice lacked conviction. This is a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. Russo laughed bitterly. You hired me to break into your son-in-law's house and make it look like an accident if he showed up. That's conspiracy to commit murder, Laurent. August watched Veronica's face pale as she turned to her husband. Murder? Clayton, you said this was just about retrieving documents. Clayton's response was cut off by the sound of a key in the front door lock. Melody had arrived. August allowed the lock to disengage, watching as his wife entered cautiously. Dad, she called out. What's going on? The moment she stepped fully inside, August re-engaged the lock. On the surveillance feed, He watched as Melody noticed Victor Russo and his men, her expression shifting from confusion to horror. "What are they doing here?" she demanded, backing toward the door only to find it locked behind her. "Welcome home, Melody." August's voice came through the intercom. "I believe you know everyone here. Your parents are in my office. Your hired help is in the living room. And now you'll all have the opportunity to explain yourselves to each other and to our other guests who will be arriving shortly." "August, please." Melody's voice took on the pleading tone she used when trying to manipulate him. "Whatever you think is happening, you're mistaken. Let me explain." "Explaining is exactly what I want," August replied, starting with the affair with Weston Crawford, then moving on to the embezzlement from the Laurent Foundation, and finally, this apparent plan to stage a break-in at our home, possibly with fatal consequences for me. The silence that followed was deafening. Then came the sound of approaching sirens. Those would be our other guests, August informed them. Federal agents with warrants for financial crimes, breaking and entering, and conspiracy to commit murder. I provided them with quite compelling evidence. Through the cameras, August watched as the color drained from Clayton Lawrence's face. Veronica collapsed into a chair, while Melody began frantically trying every door and window. "You can't do this," Clayton finally said, a shell of the confident man who had demanded a key to August's home. "I have connections. This won't stick." "It's already sticking," August replied. "But before the authorities take you away, I wanted you to experience what it feels like to be trapped, violated, betrayed by those you trusted. To have your sense of safety destroyed." As federal agents surrounded the house, August entered the final command into his security system, unlocking the doors for law enforcement access only. "One last thing," August said through the intercom as agents prepared to enter. "The prenuptial agreement you were so insistent upon, Clayton, it has a very interesting clause about criminal activity. I believe you'll find that the Laurent family fortune is about to become considerably smaller." With that, August closed his laptop and nodded to Mason and Lydia. "It's done." Mason clasped his shoulder. "You realize you've destroyed them completely." "They made their choice," August replied, watching as the first agents entered his former home. "Now they live with the consequences." Chapter 7. Dominoes Falling. The headlines broke on Monday morning. Laurent Foundation executives arrested in fraud scheme, prominent developer, and family implicated in embezzlement, and conspiracy security expert uncovers murder-for-hire plot against him. August read them from the quiet of a lakeside cabin 3 hours outside Chicago, where he'd retreated to process the events of the previous days. The initial arrests had been just the beginning. As federal investigators dug deeper into the evidence August had provided, the case expanded beyond even what he had anticipated. Weston Crawford had been arrested at his condo as he packed for what was supposed to be his escape with Melody. His gambling debts had made him vulnerable to pressure from Clayton, who had used him as both a tool for financial manipulation and as the man who would replace August in Melody's life, continuing the Laurent family's control over their daughter. "You have visitors," Mason announced, entering the cabin's living room where August sat reviewing case documents. Special Agent Teresa Kelly of the FBI's Financial Crimes Division entered, accompanied by her partner. August had been working with Kelly for weeks, feeding her information about the Laurent Foundation's activities while building his trap. "Mr. Brennan," Kelly greeted him professionally. "We have updates you want to hear." For the next hour, Kelly detailed how the case had expanded. Clayton Lawrence's criminal activities stretched back decades, involving tax evasion, bribery of local officials, and systematic fraud. Veronica Laurent, far from being an innocent spouse, had orchestrated complex money laundering operations through her various charity boards. "And Melody?" August asked, his voice carefully neutral. Kelly's expression was sympathetic but firm. "Your wife was more involved than even you suspected. We found evidence that she was the architect of several of the more sophisticated financial schemes. Her law background gave her insight into exploiting legal loopholes." August nodded slowly. Despite everything, hearing confirmation of Melody's criminality still cut deep. "There's more," Kelly continued. "We found documentation suggesting this wasn't Melody's first extramarital relationship. Weston Crawford was apparently a convenient partner because of his connection to her father's business, but there were others. I see. August's voice remained steady, though his hands tightened imperceptibly on the armrests of his chair. We'll need your testimony, of course, Kelly concluded. But given the overwhelming evidence and the fact that Victor Russo has already agreed to cooperate in exchange for leniency, we're confident in our case. After the agents departed, August stood at the cabin's picture window, looking out at the still lake water. Mason approached silently, handing him a glass of bourbon. Second thoughts? Mason asked. August considered the question carefully. Not about exposing them. They made their choices. But about my own blind spots? Yes. You couldn't have known the full extent. I should have, August interrupted. Security isn't just about systems and protocols. It's about understanding human nature. I missed signs because I wanted to believe I'd found someone who wouldn't betray me. Mason was quiet for a moment. What will you do now? August turned from the window. Rebuild, but differently this time. The next morning, August received a call from his attorney, Sophia Montgomery. The prosecutor's office reached out. She informed him. Melody is requesting a meeting with you. No lawyers, no recording devices. Just a conversation before the formal proceedings begin. For what purpose? August asked. She didn't specify. You're under no obligation to agree. August thought about it, weighing the potential risks against his desire for complete closure. Set up, but with conditions. Secure location of my choosing. No physical contact. Limited time. 2 days later, August sat in a private room at the Federal Detention Center, watching as Melody was escorted in. Her designer clothes had been replaced by detention center attire, her carefully maintained appearance now stripped down to essentials. Yet she still carried herself with the poise that had first attracted him, chin high despite the circumstances. Thank you for coming, she said, taking the seat across from him. August remained silent, studying her face, once so beloved, now revealed as a mask for something entirely different. I know you won't believe anything I say, Melody continued when he didn't speak. But I need you to know that it wasn't all a lie. What we had, there were real moments. Were there? August finally spoke. Or were there just moments when the performance was so good, even you believed it? Melody flinched. I deserve that. But my feelings for you are complicated. You have to understand, August, I've been under my father's influence my entire life. Every decision, every relationship, he controlled everything. And that justifies betraying me? Planning to destroy me? No, she admitted quietly. Nothing justifies that. But Weston was safe. My father approved. It was the path of least resistance. August's laugh was hollow. The path of least resistance. That's quite an epitaph for our marriage. Melody leaned forward, her eyes suddenly intense. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know that's impossible. But I am asking you to consider that I was as much a victim of my father's manipulations as... Don't. August cut her off sharply. Don't you dare compare your situation to actual victims. You had choices, Melody. At every turn, you chose deception, theft, and betrayal. You chose to plan my destruction rather than simply leaving the marriage honestly. Tears welled in Melody's eyes. What do you want from me, August? An admission that I'm a terrible person? Fine, I'm a terrible person. Is that what you need to hear? What I needed, August said quietly, was a wife who honored her vows. What I need now is nothing from you at all. He stood, signaling to the guard that he was finished. At the door, he paused and looked back at the woman he had once believed would be his lifelong partner. For what it's worth, he said, I hope you find a way to become someone better than who you've been. Not for me, for yourself. As August walked away, he felt a weight lifting, not completely gone, but lighter than before. The reckoning had begun, and with it, the first real steps toward healing. Chapter 8. Shattered Foundations. The Lauron case exploded across national news over the following weeks. What had begun as a seemingly straightforward financial crimes investigation morphed into one of the most significant corruption scandals to hit Chicago in decades. August's meticulous evidence, combined with Victor Russo's cooperation, exposed a network of bribery, fraud, and corruption that reached into city government, construction contracts, and even judicial appointments. Clayton Lawrence's carefully constructed empire began crumbling foundation by foundation. Business partners distanced themselves. Social connections evaporated. Properties were seized. Accounts were frozen. The man who had once demanded a key to August's home now found himself locked in a cell with no key at all. August watched the proceedings from a careful distance. Having relocated temporarily to Boston, where he had accepted a guest lecturer position at MIT cybersecurity program. The distance provided perspective, allowing him to process the destruction of his marriage without the constant reminder Chicago would have provided. One rainy Tuesday afternoon, August received an unexpected visitor at his temporary office on campus. "Mr. Brennan?" A hesitant voice came from the doorway. August looked up to see a young woman in her early 20s. "I'm Naomi Laurent, Melody's cousin." August gestured for her to enter, curiosity overriding his initial instinct to refuse any contact with the Laurent family. "I'm not here to defend them," Naomi said quickly, taking a seat. "What they did to you was unforgivable. I'm here because there are things you should know, things that might explain, though not excuse." "I'm listening," August said neutrally. Naomi twisted her hands nervously. "The Laurent family has operated like this for generations. Control, manipulation, financial deception. It's practically encoded in our DNA. Uncle Clayton continued the tradition, but he didn't start it. And Melody? Melody was groomed from childhood to be exactly what she became," Naomi explained. "The perfect daughter, the perfect accomplice. When she brought home boyfriends who didn't fit the family's plans, they disappeared, not literally, but they were driven away through various means. Until you." "I wasn't driven away," August noted. "No, you were different. Too established, too successful to be intimidated. So they changed tactics. They decided to absorb you instead, make you part of the machinery. When that failed, when you maintained your independence, you became a threat." August considered this. "Why are you telling me this?" Naomi met his eyes directly. "Because I'm trying to break the cycle. Because someone in the family should acknowledge the truth, even if the others won't. And because—" She hesitated. "Because there's more you should know about Weston Crawford." What followed was a revelation that even August, with all his investigation, had missed. Weston wasn't just Melody's lover and Clayton's financial puppet. He was also Clayton's biological son from an affair decades earlier. The Laurent family's insistence on Melody and Weston ending up together had nothing to do with business mergers and everything to do with keeping control within their bloodline, regardless of the moral implications. August struggled to find words. "Monstrous," Naomi finished for him. "Yes, and Melody knew. Not initially, but she found out 2 years ago. By then, she was already trapped in the family's web of secrets. The revelation didn't excuse Melody's choices, but it cast them in a more complex light. The depth of manipulation within the Laurent family was even more twisted than August had imagined. "Thank you for telling me," August said finally. "It doesn't change what happened, but understanding monsters helps us avoid becoming them," Naomi said softly. "That's what I'm trying to remember every day." After Naomi left, August spent hours walking the rain-soaked MIT campus, processing this new information. The Laurent family hadn't just betrayed him. They had created an ecosystem of betrayal that had existed for generations. His marriage had merely been one casualty among many. That evening, August received another call from Sophia Montgomery. "The prosecutors have offered plea deals," she informed him. "Clayton and Veronica are fighting the charges, but Melody has expressed interest in cooperating fully in exchange for reduced sentencing." And Weston, taking a similar path. His testimony about Clayton's long-term financial schemes could be key to the broader case. August considered the implications. "What does Melody's cooperation mean for me practically? You'll likely be called to testify, but her admission of guilt means you won't face the same level of cross-examination or character attacks from the defense. It simplifies things considerably." "I see." August paused. "Has she said anything else?" "About her motivations for cooperating." Sophia's voice softened slightly. only that she wants to start making things right, whatever that means to her. After ending the call, August opened his laptop and reviewed the security footage from the day of the trap one last time. He watched the moment when Melody realized she was caught, the flash of fear in her eyes, followed by calculation, and then, briefly, something that looked almost like relief. August closed the laptop. The Lawrence had constructed a prison of secrets and manipulation long before he had trapped them in his house. Perhaps, in some twisted way, he had finally set Melody free from a different kind of captivity. But that didn't mean he would ever forgive her. Understanding and forgiveness were entirely separate matters. Chapter 9. Keys to the Future. 1 year later, August stood in the foyer of his new home in Seattle, watching the morning fog roll in from Puget Sound. The house was smaller than his Chicago residence, but more thoughtfully designed. Open spaces filled with natural light, advanced security that was integrated rather than imposing, and a sense of tranquility that had been absent from his previous life. The Laurent case had concluded with a series of plea agreements and trials that dismantled not just the family's financial empire, but their entire social structure. Clayton had received 15 years for financial crimes, conspiracy, and attempted murder for hire. Veronica had been sentenced to 8 years for her role in the money laundering operations. Weston Crawford had negotiated a 5-year sentence in exchange for his comprehensive testimony, and Melody had received 7 years, eligible for parole in 4, a reduced sentence reflecting her eventual cooperation with prosecutors. The divorce had been finalized 6 months earlier, with the prenuptial agreement's criminal activity clause ensuring August retained all his assets. The doorbell rang, pulling August from his reflections. He checked the security display, smiling slightly at the familiar face before opening the door. "You're early," he told Lydia Calloway, who stood on his porch holding a bottle of wine. "Traffic was lighter than expected," she replied, stepping inside, "and I was eager to see the finished renovation." Over the past year, Lydia had transitioned from being Mason's colleague assisting with August's case to becoming something more significant in August's life. Not quite romance. Both were too cautious for that after their respective experiences with betrayal, but a friendship with potential, a possibility to be explored carefully. "How was the conference?" August asked as he gave her a tour of the completed renovations. "Illuminating. Your presentation on vulnerability detection in residential systems was particularly well received." Lydia had attended the International Security Summit in his place. August's new policy was to minimize public appearances while rebuilding his consulting business under a different model. "And Mason's retirement is still sticking this time?" Lydia laughed. "So he claims, though he's consulting on more projects than most active operatives handle." They settled on the deck, overlooking the water, the conversation flowing easily between professional matters and personal observations. August had learned to appreciate Lydia's directness, her clear-eyed view of the world that never sugar-coated reality, but also never descended into cynicism. "I received a letter yesterday," August said after a comfortable silence. "From Melody." Lydia's expression remained neutral. "And she's participating in a restorative justice program, making amends where possible. The letter was part of that process. Did you read it?" August nodded slowly. She acknowledged everything without excuses, took full responsibility, asked for nothing in return. "How do you feel about that?" It was the question August had been asking himself since receiving the letter. "I don't forgive her," he said finally. "I don't think I ever will. But I recognize that she's trying to change. That matters, even if it doesn't change the past." Lydia studied him thoughtfully. "And does recognizing that change anything for you?" August considered the question carefully. "It confirms what I've suspected this past year, that moving forward isn't about forgetting or forgiving what happened. It's about choosing not to let it define everything that comes after. Hence the new house, the new business model, the new city." "Exactly." August gestured around them. "I could have stayed in Chicago, continued running the same security consulting business, lived surrounded by reminders and resentment. That would have been letting them win in a different way. Instead, you reinvented yourself." "Not entirely," August corrected. "I kept the core of who I am, my skills, my values. but I changed how I apply them. The security systems I design now focus more on empowering clients rather than just protecting them from threats. As the evening progressed into dinner, August found himself more relaxed than he had been in years. The hypervigilance that had characterized much of his life had evolved into something more balanced. Awareness without paranoia, caution without fear. Later, as they stood at the door saying goodbye, Lydia asked one final question. Do you ever regret how thoroughly you destroyed them? The Lawrence, I mean. August thought about Naomi Lauron, who had recently launched a foundation dedicated to supporting victims of financial abuse. He thought about the reforms in Chicago's contract bidding processes that had resulted from the scandal. He thought about the letter from Melody, written in the halting language of someone trying to become a better version of themselves. They destroyed themselves, August said finally. I just refuse to be collateral damage in the process. Lydia nodded, understanding the distinction. Same time next week? I should have the analysis of the quantum encryption vulnerabilities by then. I'll look forward to it. After she left, August secured the house for the night, running through his customary checks of the security system. The routine brought comfort rather than anxiety now, a reminder that he had the skills to protect what mattered without becoming consumed by fear of betrayal. In his study, August opened a small wooden box that contained a few mementos he had kept from his previous life. Among them was a single key, the original to his Chicago home, now owned by a young family who knew nothing of its history. He picked it up, feeling its weight one last time. Then, decisively, he dropped it into the wastebasket beside his desk. Some locks were meant to remain in the past, and August Brennan had new doors to open. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.